All right, guys, it's me, Apurva, on another episode of Door Stories. I'm super excited about the guest we have today, my good friend, Alym Lakhani. Houston native now, but we're going to talk about your journey as you got to Houston, and obviously we want to unpack it all. Alym, great to have you here. Thanks for so much. Let's just take it from the top. Let's talk about your professional journey. You were born and raised in India, arrived here in Houston. So let's just talk about that journey.
So first of all, thanks, Apurva. Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here. And I know we've been planning this for a while.
Yes.
Glad to be here and glad to have this conversation with you.
Absolutely.
So a little bit about me. I was born in India, and I moved to America when I was 19 years old. I had finished my high school over there. And I actually came in for my undergrad studies at Rutgers University in New Jersey.
East Coast, yeah.
So that's where I did my undergrad. And if you've been to New Jersey, or if you know anything about New Jersey, it is very different than Texas.
That's true, very much, in many ways.
In every way you can think of, right? I mean, it has its own strengths and its weaknesses and goods and bads.
Right.
But let's just put it this way, that I wouldn't move back there.
Hey, just for the weather alone, right? You know, at least we've got the nice tame winters here.
Yes.
So you went to school at Rutgers, finished up. What brought you to Houston?
So I had some family that lived in Houston. I had my cousins that were here, and I would visit them over the summers and some winter breaks. And when I did come to Houston, I noticed that over here, it was a different lifestyle. People were more relaxed. It was more family time, and people were just overall laid back.
Yep.
And compared to the East Coast, where I felt like
Fast.
it was very fast paced.
That's
People
right.
were in this rat race, if you would
That's
call
right.
it that.
That's correct.
You know, taking the train early morning to go to the city, coming back in the evenings and spending an hour on the commute. And you know, that's just something that's the reality over there.
Makes
so
sense,
when
yeah.
once I started coming to Houston, I kind of felt like it was more my vibe.
Yeah.
So once I graduated, I decided to actually move to Houston,
Got it.
and that's where my journey in Texas began.
So, I mean, I'm going to jump right in. So you, kind of an outlier in my opinion, jumped straight into building a business right out of college. Is that correct?
So a little bit about that. While I was in college, along with my studies, I was an international student.
Okay.
So international students, the fees are double.
Yeah.
We don't get a lot of the benefits or
That's right.
just like the financial aid or any of that, right?
Right.
It's like we're total straight retail,
Yeah.
MSRP.
yes.
So
Full price. That's right.
Full price, right? So while with that, I had to when I came from India, I had my parents had given me a semester or a year's worth of college tuition.
Yep.
That's all I came with.
Support. Yeah.
Yes. And then after that, I kind of took it on myself to figure it out. So while I was in college, I started looking into doing something on my own, and I did hit it off with that. So I would buy and sell electronics on eBay. These were the early days of eBay.
I love it.
Amazon wasn't even in the picture.
That's right.
And I was an electronics geek. So I would just, I would look for things, I would look for deals. You have those newspapers, I would find items on there. I would go buy them in the store, and then I would list it online and make a little bit of markup doing that.
That's what retail arbitrage, right?
Yes.
Is that what they call it? Yeah,
Yep,
that's right.
yep.
Very cool.
And as I kept doing that, as I got deeper into that, I started buying wholesale lots or items that I felt that I could
in bulk,
in
basically.
bulk,
Okay,
yes.
got it.
Or items that I felt that that I could probably take better pictures, and it just
So we
worked
kind
out.
of started learning the retail marketing side of things, right?
Yes, and then I started importing some stuff from China.
Wow. In college, all this.
While
is in college.
all this while I was in college.
Okay, very cool.
And then I started realizing that I'm dealing with, I'm making a profit selling these products, but I'm also putting in a lot of time dealing with customers,
Sure.
dealing with their issues, their returns, and all of that. As I kept doing that, I figured out a way to recruit some friends on campus to take that burden off of me, to take that headache
Oh,
off
that's
of me.
awesome.
So I would tell them that, hey, I'll send you, I'll give you the content, I'll give you the listing, the pictures. All you have to do is list it and sell it, and we take care of everything.
You got the rest of it.
We do the product, the shipping, from A to Z. All you have to do is just be the face.
That's awesome.
And then I started, and it worked out. The guys that were doing it, they were happy. I started finding more and more people on campus.
Yeah.
Where we became.
You're giving them a little extra, school money, bar tabs, whatever
Yes.
they need
Yep,
it for,
that's right.
right?
Yeah.
So that's great.
Yeah, and then it was a new thing. It was all innovative at that time. So people were intrigued. They were excited. They were looking into it was this element of curiosity for them, right? And they wanted to get into this online, the buzz that was going on back then.
So you launched this kind of like beginning of the empire, for lack of a better word, in the college days. You started recruiting people. Let's fast forward to kind of like coming out of college. It sounds like that was fairly successful. Probably helped you cover tuition, things like that, and give you a jump start. But then you just kept going right into a full-fledged business, or is there a
So
piece in
at
between?
one point while I was in college, we had around 15 to 20 people that were working
20
for us.
employees?
Yes, well, not full time; they were freelancers.
I get it, but yeah, but you built a
we had
team
around,
of
yes,
20.
we had a team of 20 people that
Wow.
would do this on the side.
Okay.
And my family that I would live with, they would ask me, "What kind of scam are you running? What is this?
What is all these random electronics boxes that are falling off trucks in
yes,
our
exactly.
garage?
Yep.
Got it.
Yep, you said it right. That's exactly what they would say.
That's funny.
And to a point where just we kind of built like a little brand for ourselves at that time in college and
Okay.
at home and within the community, but it was fun. It was it was just something on the side.
Yeah.
Then
So
as time went by,
entrepreneurship's been in the DNA.
it's been my calling. all
Obviously,
along.
yeah,
right
that's
from
clear.
When I was a kid, I would see my family. I would see business dealings between my family and just overall my friend circle and
Great.
all of that as well. So that kind of was just in my personality.
Yeah. In the blood, basically.
And then when I graduated, fortunately or unfortunately, I never worked a corporate job
Yeah.
a day in my life.
Yeah, I mean, there's two sides of the coin there, just to unpack that for a second. Sometimes being exposed in some professional atmosphere, you just get to see a polished operation, right?
Yes. And that's something I feel that I personally missed out on because I never got to see that side.
Sure.
To where it's a structured operation, streamlined.
Right.
I just had to figure it out.
Just
all
day one, yeah,
on
just
my
build it all.
own.
Yeah. And we've lamented on, nobody really, even now, even as we've further along in our entrepreneurial journeys, like the playbooks are not out there really. You kind of still have to build your own playbook, right? And so you clearly developed one as you went. So keep going. Let's keep unpacking it.
Yeah. So as as we talked about, I did not work in corporate, and for some reason I felt like if I apply for a job, I probably won't get one. So I just stayed away from that territory. All my friends, I would see them, working at Merrill Lynch and Goldman Sachs.
Yeah.
And all these big four, the PwCs, right? And
There's an adage about many entrepreneurs that we meet, we're unhireable, right? So you already knew, one way or another, you were unhireable. Right?
I'd gone for one interview. It was at I graduated in finance. That was my major.
Got it.
And somehow I felt like, hey, I put in all this time, I've gotten this degree, and Rutgers was a fairly decent university. And I felt like, after everything I've put in, am I wasting, or has my degree gone to waste because I've not really worked in a corporate. And I'd gone for one interview. It was at a forensics accounting firm, and I felt like it went great. It was amazing. Me and the guy interviewing me was vibing, and I felt like there's no way I wouldn't get this job.
Yeah.
But guess what? I didn't get it.
Hey, it was a blessing, right? A blessing in disguise.
And then it was a disappointment to me. I was like, hey, I thought I had this, but it looks like somebody was probably better than me.
Yeah.
But just organically and naturally, it never happened. And then as time went by, I was talking about my cottage business that I had built while I was in college. I continued doing that after I graduated for a while, where it scaled up. We were buying bulk lots. We had
So you're basically full-fledged import, export, or
we
importing.
Yes,
and
we had
retailing.
rented a space. We had a small warehouse that we were renting It was more structured and organized, where we had certain contracts with DHL and FedEx.
Wow.
And all of that. But then as time went by, there were changes in the industry.
Sure.
Where then it wasn't as lucrative.
Yep.
And then I got stuck with a few bad deals, and I lost a bunch of money while doing that. I got into a little bit of debt, and it was a pretty rough patch. It was a tough time for me.
Okay.
This was right the window where I had graduated. It was like maybe 6 months to a year. And as I spoke earlier, when I started looking into moving from New Jersey, because one, the cost of living is pretty high over there. Insurance costs were high. So comparatively, Texas seemed like a more low cost and all the other reasons that I mentioned earlier. Once I moved here, I actually started winding down that business that I had.
Okay.
And I actually started working for a little while.
Okay.
Right? I worked as a retail sales rep.
Got it.
I did that for like 6 months or 8 months. And during that time, I was torn between staying in the US or moving back to India.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So in India, my family, we're a business family. My parents, they're comfortable. They were
Sure.
like, come back. If you're not happy,
Yeah, of
if
course.
you're struggling,
Yeah.
just come back here. But luckily, I ended up during that time meeting my wife,
Okay.
the one that I'm married to, and I have 3 beautiful kids with.
Yes, absolutely.
And she was the pot at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah.
I was smitten at that time, and I was like, there's no way. At the back of my head, I was like, there's no way I'm moving back. And we hit it off. We were friends for a while, and I found out during that time that I guess it was not just one-sided. She liked me too.
That's great.
So it just worked out.
Some of us had to work for it, but it sounds like it was automatic.
Well, I did have to work for it. I did have to work my way through her and her family, and it was that's a story for another day.
Sure.
But long story short, I was lucky to have met her.
Okay.
And she was a big rock and a pillar that helped me
gain the confidence to stick around.
That's
and
right.
really double down on building your own thing.
Yes.
It sounds like.
So during that time, I was working, like I mentioned.
Yep.
And then I got an opportunity to buy my first retail store.
Okay.
It was one that was unsuccessful by the person that was running it before me.
Okay.
And it had changed hands a few times.
Okay.
For me, I didn't really think of all that, and I just jumped right in. And in any retail or in any business, there's a few elements that go into it. It's the business,
Right.
but also it is the energy and the edge that you put in.
Absolutely.
So since I was new, I was young, I was hungry, all the time and effort that I put into it, it actually made it grow significantly. So
That's great.
It worked out perfectly. It's actually not too far from here, from your office. It's down the street on the other side of Westheimer.
So I want to unpack. It was the telecom industry.
Yes.
A wireless store, right?
Yes.
Like the cell phone stores we see kind of all across the shopping centers. Was it your exposure to electronics that kind of led you to stay kind of around that industry and kind of just pointed you in that direction, or what was the
Exactly, just whatever you said. That's exactly what it was.
Great.
It was my inclination towards electronics.
Got it.
Towards those products, and towards just the new technology that's coming out, and just staying on top of it.
Yeah, and this was like when cell phones were like all the rage. It was a new technology, so there was a lot of activity and action around.
It was
there.
all the rage. It was not as mainstream. It was still a very niche market where people were still trying to figure out, or it was
Yeah. There's new players. This was probably like Ariel and all those like
Ariel was before my time.
Before your time. Okay, a little later than that. Got it.
T-Mobile, Singular, AT&T.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. Amazing.
Right.
So you found an opportunity. I want to kind of expand on that. Where did you source this opportunity? Was it like listed somewhere? Was there a network that you were just working to
Are you
find out?
talking about the
store
that
that
I
was for
found,
sale?
or
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So the store that I found was, while I was working at this other store, I was always looking for, I was looking for
An opportunity.
just killing time. And
Yeah.
I was back then Craigslist was a popular
Okay.
avenue.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. So I think I found it either on Craigslist or it was one of those marketplaces.
Okay.
I was very close to where I was working, so I went to check it out. It made sense, and I jumped right in. And it's been history ever since.
Wow.
Again, like I said, fortunately, I had the luck was in my favor.
Yeah.
All the time. And then we spent. It was not all instant. It did take its own time, and it was.
And this was a private cellular store, not a franchise of any type.
This was not a franchise. It was a private store. It was very niche, and it was on Westheimer. So on Westheimer, you're dealing with a lot of oil and gas.
Okay.
A lot of these
Just consumers, yeah.
customers that are coming in from different countries. So we had people from Venezuela, Angola, Nigeria.
Oh wow.
And all these people became my friends too.
That's great.
For a very long time. So we had the drivers that would bring in the people. We had their IT people that would come in. We had the owners of the companies.
Wow.
And I had become friends with all of them to where it was almost like a little social circle.
Yeah, so the store kind of helped you expand your network,
Yes.
Organically. That's really cool. So we sourced this first business, and we're going to talk about kind of the scale and expansion, which is, I was reading the notes. It's mind blowing, in my opinion, of how far you've grown. But so you started getting kind of acclimated with this business, running a business, all of it. What was the kind of first lever that told you, hey, I need to grow? Like, when did you decide, hey, it's time to do number 2, number 3?
Apurva, I'm sorry because I'm just going on and on and rambling about it, but it's just nostalgic for me.
No, that's great.
Right? Because
that's
it's
great.
from back in the day.
You can see the passion. That's
but
fantastic.
as time went by, we slowly got an opportunity to get into an authorized dealer model.
Okay.
Which was Metro by T-Mobile,
Got it.
which is a T-Mobile-owned company. And at that time, T-Mobile had acquired this company called Metro PCS.
Metro PCS, yeah.
Which was a regional carrier. It was only in, I think, 6 or 8 cities back then.
Okay.
And we just took it and ran. We acquired a few locations.
Okay.
And then slowly and steadily, there was significant growth as far as organic growth.
Yep.
We were opening up new stores. We were acquiring dealers.
Question. So one store, naturally it was probably generating lifestyle support income, right? But how do you start to capitalize to grow, right? Did you raise capital? Did you friends and family network, or were you just like running a lean lifestyle and said, hey, I'm going to save and grow to the next one, to the next one, to the next one? I'm just curious if you don't mind expanding on that.
So one good thing about us is we're a debt-free company. We've not, we've taken debt, here and
Sure.
wherever we needed to, but we've kind of grown organically, and that's how it's been from day one.
From day one. Okay.
So we did not raise any money, and one primary reason for that was I just didn't want to be answerable to anyone.
Yeah. The bank is another master, right? One way or another.
Yes, that's right. So debt-free. And just mostly organic. So we would plow in all the cash flows that we would make from our
just pull out enough
sales.
just to support your lifestyle needs.
Yes.
And
we would always run a very lean operation.
Great.
So it was lean in terms of lifestyle. It was lean in terms of our operations. It was lean to a point where initially, with all the travel that we needed to do, we would actually use our airline miles that we would accumulate and not. In spite of people telling us that just buy your tickets, you don't want to, because it's a business expense, right?
I mean, early on,
it's an expense, but it's a business expense, but it's still an expense.
Right. I mean, frugality is part of the kind of strategy that I've heard over and over again in people's early days that led to success. Just living a frugal life, beneath your means for a while, and then things change as you start to hit the next layers of success, right?
That's right. So that, and being blessed with a great team. So right from the early days, I was lucky to be working with my younger brother. So he he was going to college over here in Houston.
Okay.
So luckily he joined our team, and then my wife's brother was also
Okay.
A big part of our company growth as well. So three of us together.
Are you guys partners?
We are partners.
Okay,
yes.
so for the company now, the family is kind of integrated into a partnership.
Yes.
That's great.
Yep.
It's not always easy, right? Partnerships and family, right?
Yes.
There's a different dynamic, and making sure that there's always going to be challenges in business. There's challenges in families. You kind of need to separate boundaries. How do you guys navigate that? I'm curious.
So we've had our differences over the years,
Sure.
and we still do till this date.
Right.
But our bond that keeps us together is much greater than the differences that we have.
Of course.
And the one good thing that has worked for us is they're both younger than me.
That makes sense. So you're the big brother.
So they follow along, and
Right.
they're always there to support.
We touched a little bit prior to this, professionally around like EOS, and one of the things about EOS is somebody's usually the visionary. Is that, and I know it's a big word, right? But in the sense of like somebody's casting the vision and saying, hey, this is where we want to go. Do you feel like that's your role in the partnership?
I would like to think that, but I think it was a sum of combined visions.
That's great.
Between all of us.
Good.
But I always wanted us to grow and to be too big to ignore.
That's good.
Right?
Good. Yeah.
Too big to where the industry was ever changing. It was ever consolidating, and it still is till this day.
Yeah.
And I figured the only way to survive long term is to become bigger and keep improving
That's amazing.
your operation and your back office. And that's what we did. We kept investing into the business, not just in our growth, but also in our back office. And back then, it was that was an outlier. You would see other companies that were just running a shoestring operation. They were just focused on sales, but none of them would. And that's what
fulfillment ops is such a critical piece of like
right.
the triangle of running a business, right?
Yes.
And
so we invested in in HR. We got a real estate person on the team. We got inventory management, and this was all back then. Now it all seems like the norm, but back then it was it was not. And luckily, I was blessed to be to have the right team come along.
That's awesome.
So we've until this day we have an incredible team that that we love to work with, and we all great people, and we all get along, and always a pleasure.
And so I'm going to fast forward a little bit. You kind of figured out this formula, really loaded up the team for scale and growth, right? Adding a real estate person means you're going to grow, right? Like you're looking to expand. That's all about expansion, right? So, let's fast forward a little bit. We're now 150 plus stores.
Yes.
Across 4 or 5 states.
Yes, that's right.
That's incredible. How do you guys, I'm back to the partnership for a second. How do you guys divide up roles at this scale, right? There's, different hats that people wear. I'm curious, especially in the partnership, who's doing what at this size now? Are you still growing and expanding? Or has we kind of hit a threshold where we're comfortable, especially with the industry constantly changing? I'll stop there. Let's expand on that for a second.
Yes, that was a lot of questions.
That was a lot. Sorry, I hit you a lot.
I'm
there.
trying to see which one.
Yeah, no. Let's just talk about
first.
the road to 100 to 150.
Yes.
You now the families become partners. Who's handling what in that journey?
So as we grew, geographically we started expanding to different cities, right? So from Houston we went into San Antonio. And after San Antonio, we went into Rio Grande Valley, which is by the border, and we have a big presence over there now. Then we went into Waco, Corpus Christi, some parts of Dallas, and we went into Oklahoma, into Louisiana. Now we're in Florida. So we're still on a positive trajectory for growth. But to answer your question on who's doing what, as we grew, there was no way we could do everything.
Right, of course.
So we started growing within the company to where we have district managers, regional managers, and then we have roles within the back office, which we keep trying to centralize our operations, where somebody is handling each part of the business. But between all of us, initially it was to where we were geographically divided up amongst ourselves. So there was some person that was like my brother would actually move to San Antonio. He
Okay.
lived there for 5 or 6 years, and he did a great job. He grew the whole market.
Okay.
My brother-in-law was handling all of Houston, and Houston we significantly grew.
That's amazing.
But then as we grew into other cities and other states, and we got spread out, then we started assigning those roles. And again, like I said, we've been blessed to have a
Just
great
building
team
the
in
org
place.
chart. So we're at 500 plus employees now.
Yes, that's right.
That is incredible. I mean, I'm sure you hear it a lot, but you should be very proud of building that at the pace and at the scale that you have, debt-free, organically. That's incredible. So as you get to that level, I mean, there's new you mentioned HR, operations, when 500 people is a lot, right? I have a small team of 30, 40 of us, and it feels overwhelming sometimes. So I can only imagine at that scale. You layered in kind of management, roles to help facilitate that. What does growth look like now? You're already, that's big, but what does growth look like today?
So at this day, I feel like growth comes naturally. We are not trying to chase a number
Okay.
to where we want to be the biggest, or we just want to grow for the sake of growing.
Right.
Now we're picking and choosing our growth, and also looking internally to see if we are ready for more growth, right? On the other hand, we are reinvesting in our current business to see how we can make it more efficient, how we can make it more profitable.
Is that more products, more services, at each store level? What does that typically look like?
Basically, what that looks like is looking to where we can possibly reduce inefficiencies, cut costs,
Got it. Just optimize.
increase efficiency, and then also, on the other hand, look at low productive or low profit segments or areas or stores, and really deep dive into them, whether we should even keep them, or whether we can grow them, or what we would like to keep with them. It's almost like having a garden, and you're constantly cutting the weeds, and you're putting in
Just
fertilizer.
maintaining it. Yeah, that makes sense.
And
That's good.
we're in that maintenance mode.
Good analogy.
Yes.
Do you lean on, recently I started leaning on this for myself, just like you said, you just started learning this stuff on a whim, and things, you're just learning as you go and always learning. But do you lean on advisors, coaches? Do you have mentors that, now at this scale, that, people that have already done it at this, I mean, because the things you're mentioning, I'm like, where do you even start to, know these strategies and these skills, right? What resources do you use? Do you lean on people, trainings? What does that look like?
So, Apurva, to answer that question, I wish I had a better answer, but I've always looked for mentorship and a mentor, but I haven't really been too successful with that. I haven't been too lucky to actually have a mentor.
That's good.
But fortunately, I've been surrounded by a lot of good friends and good family that have given me advice and that I've learned from.
That's great.
I've seen them. I've seen what they do in their operations and in their businesses, and I think that has really taught me a lot. So like when I moved to Houston, I had some family that had been here for a while, so I kind of was seeing what they were doing.
Right.
Then I had some friends, and then as time went by, as we started growing in what we did, I got an opportunity to meet a lot of interesting people.
Yep.
Be it my customers, my vendors.
That's great. Yeah.
And other people in the business that I could learn from, and even my landlords for that matter, that I learned a lot from. And slowly and steadily, some of them actually have become friends, and to this day we talk. So they would give me some good advice, and just conversation, right? And I'm an avid listener, so I love to learn and listen to what from people's experiences on what they've been through.
And that's a perfect segue. So for most of this journey, you were a tenant, right? You were opening retail stores and shopping centers and strip malls and things like that as a tenant. So somewhere along the way, the direction changed and you said, wait a minute, I can start acquiring real estate? But you have some great stories about the tipping point there. Let's talk about that. Like, when did the vision of starting to expand into a real estate empire as part of your growth? When did that happen? Why did that happen? And let's keep talking through that.
So, great question, and it's a question that I guess it's like almost like a 3 or 5 part question for me.
Sure.
So the first part is where we were growing in our retail business. With that, it was a very real estate focused operation, because it was all about getting into the right locations and
Yep.
right areas, and signing leases,
Yep.
and negotiating these leases, looking at the rents, right? One thing about us is that we've always kept everything in-house.
Right.
So I never actually had an attorney review any of my leases. I did it all myself.
It's awesome.
Right from day one. And it just became a second nature to me. So
It forces you to learn all of the crazy language in these leases and the things landlords try and
Yes.
pull on you, right?
Yes. So I made my mistakes through that, and I learned a lot. And it's always different when you're doing it firsthand, right? To a point where my first location, interesting story. I had this lease that I was given, and I looked through it, and I found that there were some things that I did not agree with. And I told the landlord that, hey, I don't agree with this. Guess what? The next day I come into the store, he has it all locked up. Like,
Oh my
I have no
gosh.
access to the store. And the landlord used to own a safe business, like the big metal safes.
Okay.
He had like 6 safes in front of the store saying no access, just
Oh my-
because I disagreed.
Just you had a
with him on
verbal
the
dispute.
lease. Yes.
Oh, wow. Oh my God.
But this was back then. This was 12 or 13 years ago. And
Okay.
now me and the landlord, we are actually friends. He calls me and he gives me advice, and he talks about his
wow.
journey and what he's he always has something to say. But back then this was very stressful.
I would imagine.
Right, I had
Shut
all this
down.
merchandise in the store. I had my life savings in there.
Oh my
I
gosh.
put it in the store, and he's like, "Oh, you're kicked out." But anyways, so I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Okay.
So this was one of them. This was my first one. And then as we went along, I used to have conversations with landlords, with brokers, to a point where I kind of learned that the way it works on the leasing side is, as a landlord, you're paying commission to the broker as part of signing a lease.
Right.
So even though I would identify the place, I would negotiate the lease.
Mm.
But towards the end, I would tell him that, hey, I have a broker, and they wouldn't say no. They would say, okay, if you have a broker, you do, right?
Right.
And then I had a couple of friends that were brokers. So I would put them in as brokers.
Yep.
And then with that, obviously it was to where it helped me build my relationship with them as well, to where I knew that at some point I would, and I was itching, or I was looking into acquiring some real estate on my own.
Got it.
But I figured, rather than just asking them, maybe if I provide this value, they'll think of me when they have a deal.
When
or
opportunity arises. Yeah,
yes, when
got it,
an
got it.
opportunity arises, right?
That's
And that's
great.
exactly how it played out.
Oh, really?
That helped me acquire my first shopping center that I did. This was, I think, in 2017 or so.
And I'm going to unpack a lot of your real estate in a second, but this first one. So let's just kind of put this story together. So you were learning about the landlord side as a tenant. You're understanding leases, seeing how landlords are, navigating things, negotiations, occupancy as you even are a tenant, and and then you had these broker relationships that were giving you guidance and feedback as well. So you're just kind of learning the game.
Yes.
Basically, right? So shopping centers and retail seem natural because you've already been an occupant for so many
Correct.
instances.
Yes.
And then you were giving these carrots of opportunity to the brokers to represent you, which left you as a top of mind when an opportunity came. The first one you bought, was that one that you were occupying, or was it
That
just
was
a new
not
opportunity?
one that I was occupying.
Okay.
It was one that we weren't occupying, and we didn't have the potential to occupy either, just because of the restrictions or the geographical restrictions.
Got it.
That were there at that time. However,
So it was just a standalone
it was. I think
investment
it was
opportunity.
around a 12,000 square foot
Okay.
center, and it was a pretty risky deal back then. It was, I think, 60% occupied.
Okay.
40% of it was vacant.
Wow.
It was a little part of town which.
Class C, Class D kind of
Yes,
thing. Got
yes,
it.
on a more, I wouldn't say rundown, but I was familiar with all of these areas as a tenant and
Right.
as a business operator. So I knew that, hey, people might shy away, but these are good areas for business. And this, I'm talking about, pre-COVID, now it seems like there's a lot more awareness. There's
Yeah.
a lot more people are doing it, and people are, there's a lot more people in
Yeah.
the business, and they're getting good at it as well. So more power to them. But however, for me, it was my first foray into it. I had absolutely no idea. All I knew was from my conversations with friends and business associates and landlords and vendors. And there were some people that were gracious enough to share their knowledge and experience with me, which I learned from, and I was able to use as tools when I went into this, right?
That's great.
So specifically about that particular one, I liked it. I felt like I could do something with it, and it seemed like a good deal at that time, and we went for it. But then again, that was just the starting point. There were so many things that I had to navigate through, which I had absolutely no idea about. Dealing with the banks.
I was about to say, did you finance this?
I did finance it.
Okay.
There was one bank that someone had referred to me, and I went in there, and I spent hours and days talking to them, presenting my financials,
Yeah.
getting all my ducks in a row.
Yep.
Only to find out that eventually they said, hey, I don't think we can do this. This doesn't fall under, we don't have appetite for this, or this is too risky for us.
Got it.
Right? But then I didn't give up.
Yeah, I was going to say, so how did we overcome?
So I went to a different bank.
Okay.
And that banker, he's still a good friend of mine. But again, we went all the way till the finish line, and because of one of the tenants that was in there, which was questionable to the bank,
Yeah.
they turned me down as well. Then I went to a third bank through a referral, and luckily, I had more success with them, and it worked out. And it was one of those initial deals where ignorance is bliss.
Sure.
Where I wasn't really sitting and analyzing every little thing, or every little metric, or every little point. I was just like, hey, for me, just the end goal was in mind.
Just get it
I
done,
wanted to
yeah.
acquire this, and I wanted to see what I can do with it.
That's right.
And luckily, it all worked out. Now, looking back, I probably would not do the deal that I did with the bank. But then back then, that was what was available.
I'm fairly
to me.
certain most real estate entrepreneurs I know, their first deal or two are not the most glamorous, right?
Right.
You have to learn somewhere, right?
Yes.
So you ended up getting it.
Yes.
And worked through the motions of creating occupancy.
Yes.
Now it's a very different world from a tenant to a landlord.
Yes.
Changing hats now.
Yes. So being a tenant in all these other centers, I was definitely more sympathetic.
Right.
As a landlord, because
Fair.
I had seen the other side, and I definitely didn't want to be the bad or the ugly landlord. I wanted to be the good one.
That's good.
From all the experiences that I've had, and fortunately it played in my favor, where I've had good tenants, and since that, I think it took us maybe a year or so to slowly and steadily get it occupied and weed out some of these questionable tenants.
Right.
And then it's been 100% occupied since almost 5 years now.
Oh, it's incredible.
Or more.
Oh, so it's only been 5 years since your first one.
So we acquired it in 2017, so it's been more than 5 years.
Okay,
but
got
I'm
it.
saying the 100% occupancy.
I got you. Since it's been 100% occupied
Since 5
for the
years,
past
and it's on
Got
cruise
it.
control. And I believed in that location. I knew it was a good spot. It was high traffic. It was right off of the freeway. So there's no way that it wouldn't make it. It was just that, it didn't have that TLC that it needed.
Makes sense.
So after we bought it, we invested into just the cosmetics.
The CapEx of improving it and things like that.
Yep, like the concrete in the parking lot, the paint.
Did you know anything about cap rates and all that stuff at this time?
I had absolutely, I knew cap rates, I knew what they were,
Yeah.
but again, that was not a driving factor
Right.
for me.
You
it
were
was
just
more
good deal,
what I
let's make
can
it
do with
happen.
it, right?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was more like, hey, I'm going to take this and I'm going to make it, just like all the energy I put into my operating business, this is
That's
going to
right.
be another operating
That's right.
business for me. So slowly and steadily, we were able to put time and energy and effort into it, make it look nicer, and then we got some good tenants in place, and it's been good since then. That was my first deal.
So was that did that become kind of like the formula? Like underperforming retail, we can turn this around, we can put the love on it that it needs and make this a viable center. Is that kind of your strategy?
Yes, exactly the way you said it, and that's exactly what it was. Just,
Great.
Look for some value add.
Yep.
Invest into it. Put in the energy, the resources, the money behind it. Make it look nice, and just think about what you would want as a tenant.
Right.
There's a lot of landlords, or there's just a lot of people in general that that try to get by with as little as they can.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, just shabby parking lots, poor facade,
Yes.
Overdue maintenance, just simple things. Like sometimes it's that simple, but unfortunately, mom and pop landlords oftentimes just run out of capital for these things,
True.
right? And
They
so
don't have capital. They're in their comfort zone.
yeah,
They're just collecting their cash flow.
Checks keep
and
coming.
They're in
one
their
way or
tunnel
another.
vision, right? Hey, it's working. Why do I want to mess with
That's
it?
right. That's
But
right.
one thing I've learned just overall is that you need to spend money to make money.
That's right.
Right? You can just say, hey, I want to make money, but then I don't want to put
That's right.
anything into it.
That's absolutely right.
So since and like you said, that was our first acquisition, and
Okay.
then after that, since it was the first one, and since we were working on it, we weren't as aggressive in our real estate acquisitions.
Yep.
And move on a few years, and we went into our second deal and a third and our fourth, and then now
Just started rocking and
it's
roll.
become like a second nature to us.
It's an entire
parallel
business of its own, right? Is
That's
just the
right.
real estate acquisition. So I want to kind of backtrack a little bit. So, part of the things that, we often, and honestly, the reason why we do this podcast is to kind of explain some of the tactical, right? So it started with building banking relationships, so financing. Capitalize, I'm going to assume that most of it was kind of just the success from the business, the wireless business. Use that capital to grow and buy real estate. You have not raised outside capital outside of the partnerships, I would imagine. It's the core partnership, right?
Yes.
Is that a fair statement? Then acquiring and sourcing deals. Are you still relying on the broker community and your relationships there, or have you kind of shifted gears or finding stuff on your own? How do you source deals?
So I feel like real estate is a team sport,
Right.
right? And people are a lot more forthcoming in this business. There's the relationships are great. There's people always willing to share their knowledge, their contacts,
Right.
as well.
Yeah.
If I ask you, hey Apurva, do you know this person who's who does this?
Absolutely.
And, you wouldn't hold off. You would be like,
No,
hey,
no.
there's a list of people.
I've
And,
got my
I would be the
highlight
same.
list and my black list, and I'm gonna give you both.
Yep. So people have been, people are very forthcoming. I feel like everyone's happy for each other's growth.
Yeah, an abundance mindset, right? Like everybody's
Yes.
growing. That makes sense.
That's right,
yeah.
an abundance mindset.
Mhm.
And with that, I was able to use or leverage that to where, hey, if Apurva is successful in what he does, and he has these relationships with, say, different vendors, right? Like
Yeah.
the banker,
Yep.
the roofer.
That's right.
I'm like, hey, if Apurva is doing it, he's doing it right.
Yeah.
I don't really have to think through too much,
That's right.
right? And then since I went in through Apurva's contact,
Yeah. You vetted
they
it,
already
yeah.
have, it's already vetted. So Apurva's, he's vetted me, and the vendors vetted
That's
as
right.
well, right?
That's right.
And I think that has that has helped me.
A lot of real
leverage.
estate operates that way, right? Like it's
Right.
referral based on all facets of it, right?
Yes.
From the bankers to the vendors to the plumber, like everybody,
Yes.
right?
That's right. Yep.
That's
yep,
very
yep.
true. That's very
And
true.
then a big part of it is the broker relationships as
Mhm.
well. right? And we've been lucky that we've had some really good broker relationships. To where
And you've got probably two sides of it. You've got, an acquisitions broker, and then you've got your landlord representation. Unless you guys do leasing in-house?
So one thing that we've done all along is we've kept it in-house.
Oh, great.
Because I always wanted to have more control.
That makes sense.
In the conversation.
Yeah.
To where if it's someone in-house that's working for me, I have a little bit more control on what they say and do, and and making sure that they don't let any opportunity go by.
Yeah.
So we've
That's
done
fair.
done all our leasing in-house. We've done all our property management in-house as well.
And there's a single focus and motivation, right? Nothing against, there's some really killer brokers out there from a landlord representation, but they're representing multiple motivations, right? They've got multiple clients, multiple locations. In-house, it's like, hey, it's my properties.
Yes.
We're going to get it done.
And they know how I think.
Right.
And they replicate it every day on the field because they've been working with me for so long.
I love that.
To where they know that, hey, this is what he would do. So
That's
this is what I need to do.
That's awesome.
So they have a grip on it every step of the way, and that's worked for us, right? So in the beginning we did try property management, we did try brokers, and we had some success with that. But then I realized that if I take it in house, it definitely helps us. It helps us grow and scale.
Makes sense.
On a much faster pace because we're ready. We're ready for anything that comes our way.
I mean, it's it mirrors what you did in the wireless business, right? It's just optimize internally, grow internally, develop the talent and teams internally. Correct. So there's no shock that you're doing the same thing on the real estate side. Let's fast forward 15, 20 shopping centers. Is that I know it's 200,000 square feet.
Yes.
I'm assuming.
So there's some that are of significant size in there. So I think right now the count is maybe around, maybe somewhere around there, maybe a little less than that.
Got it. Got it. Some larger ones, yeah. Because you've got some big box retail, is that right? Like with some of the big box stores, or?
Yes. Not the huge box, but then we have the the 60, 70,000 square foot.
Got it. Amazing. Yes. And so it sounds like you developed the team. Do you still rely on brokers to source those deals, or are you guys just hunting on your own for those opportunities, the larger stuff?
So those deals do come from brokers.
Okay.
We do not have the infrastructure to actually source our own deals.
Sure. Yeah.
But then, like I said earlier, we've had some good broker relationships to where they know what we're looking for. They know what this. Again, brokers work with several, like a whole spectrum of buyers, right? So when they identify one that they feel like this would work for Alym and his team, then they bring it to us.
Yeah, and the honest thing that I've learned is on commercial real estate, it is a little constrained community, especially the broker side, and breaking through is not easy. But once they start to see that you are a doer and you're closing and things are, then you get a lot more attention.
In this business, everybody gets paid when you close.
That's right.
If you don't close, nobody gets paid.
Nobody gets paid, that's right.
So they want to make sure that you're the one that'll be closing because they don't want to waste their own time, and they don't want to waste all the effort that they've put in.
That's right.
Into it.
So 200,000 square feet of retail. That's really been your concentration. You've not really expanded outside of that. Is that correct?
We have not expanded outside of that. Yes.
But tell me kind of where you're headed. What's next? In terms of real estate specifically. I know the wireless business is going to continue to grow organically, and you guys are optimizing around that. Real estate is reasonably new venture, 7-8 years into it so far, right? What does growth look like there? Where are you headed?
So, for me, like I said earlier, we're not trying to chase a number.
Right.
Right. We're not trying to grow for the sake of growing. Neither are we doing this just because others are doing it. We're doing it only if it makes sense to us. And at this point in my life, I feel like I've put in a lot of time and priority on balance. We
3 kids, family,
Yes.
Different priorities, of course.
Yeah, so spending time with family, just take a little time out disconnecting from work and all that is a big priority. But on the other hand, we do want to, or we will, we will put our focus on continuing to grow in the space that we are in, because we know it and we've done it for so long and we understand it. Outside of that, I'm definitely interested in some development opportunities. That is something I would like to explore.
Some ground up, yeah.
I've done some of it, but not personally. I've done it with some partners where they've handled they've
kind of an investor type. Yeah.
Yes.
Got it.
So, but I've seen it. I've seen how they've done, and they've done really well with it. But then again, that's not my niche. So, but at some point, I would definitely like to, or I would want to explore that as well, because you're building something, so that there's that excitement of
yeah,
from scratch.
Seeing it come together. It's
Yes.
it's always exciting. I'm assuming just develop retail
Correct.
centers and things like that. Something that you already know, that you're already comfortable with.
Right. I mean, there's many asset classes.
Absolutely.
Right? And you could do any one. There's multifamily.
Of course.
And there's warehouses. Then there's office condos.
Right.
And there's retail.
Right.
And then there's several types of retail as well. Right. So there's all kinds, and then ultimately it's all the formula plays into anything that you pick any one of them. It's the same formula.
Yeah.
There's a cap rate. And
Sure.
then there's your financing, and then there's your capex and opex and all of that, right? But it's also to what you know and what you're good at.
Yeah.
And I feel like we as since we've learned so much, and this is something that I'm comfortable with. So then that's kind of something that that I would want to continue exploring, and not just get stretched and chasing this and that.
Yeah. I've learned narrow the focus a little
Yes.
bit, because real estate, what's exciting is there's so many ways to slice it, right? There's so many ways, but at some point, you can get, if you get more reps in a certain asset class or a certain strategy, you just get stronger and stronger at that, versus like, okay, I'm going to do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. There's people that do it either way, but for the better part, I've seen the concentration seems to be.
And then one thing that that we've really had success with, or we feel like that's been our niche, is getting some of these underdeveloped or value add locations, and actually putting in the effort and the money into it, and that's
Absolutely.
and developing it, and then putting in the energy into the leasing as well, to a point where I think we're, between all our centers, for the exception of maybe one, we're almost close to 95 to 100% occupied.
That's incredible. Yeah, I mean, I think you've already figured out this kind of golden formula that's working, right? Sometimes it's like, why even mess with it? Because there's more markets, you can continue to scale. There's always underperforming and kind of dilapidated
Yes.
centers that can be turned around.
Right.
I love it. So take me kind of, and I know you don't have a target or some kind of goal in mind, but what does the next 3 to 5 years look like for you guys, in terms of growth and things like that? What is at least the road that you're on for now?
So like I said earlier, basically it's just continuing to do what we do and getting better at it, reinvesting into the business, making processes more efficient, making them stronger, having our team grow as well, having our people grow, to where they've played a big hand in our growth and our success as well. So having them grow, and then just getting all these synergies together, and slowly and steadily be on that upwards trajectory.
Of course.
Again, I know that maybe I'm not really answering your question to where, because I don't really have a 3 to 5 year vision.
But, I'll say this, you've run organically and scaled without really like maybe saying, hey, I need this dollar or this number or this portfolio size. But, growth seems to be the underlying kind of, driving effort without like a clear destination. That's okay. There's nothing, I think that's fantastic, right? Sometimes let the kind of the road pave itself, right? To some degree.
Yes. And one thing I believe in is impatience in actions and patience in the results.
That's great.
And
I love
patience
that.
is key. You need to have patience.
Right.
You can't do something now and then expect, just
Instant results.
instant
Yeah.
results or instant gratification that, it's going to.
My diet agrees with you.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. But, especially when you're in a very conventional space, a conventional business, retail is conventional,
Right.
real estate is conventional. So you have to give it time. It's almost like watching paint dry, or it's like watching the grass grow.
Right, right.
Where you do whatever it takes, you put in the time and effort and all the ingredients, but then you have to be patient in watching it grow, because it will not be overnight. It'll be slow and steady, and it'll be over the years. Meanwhile, you still focus on whatever is important to you. Like I said earlier, I place a lot of value into spending time with family, with friends, and just building relationships, and just that the intellectual stimulation as well.
That's great.
So I do place value into that, and that's something that I enjoy doing. I see there's several people out there that are constantly putting in all their time into work, and again, more power to them. That's what makes them happy.
Right.
But then when I see them, I'm like, I don't want to be that person.
No, absolutely.
I don't want to be that person that's working till 2 a.m.
Time is your most precious currency,
yes,
right?
And not being there at their kids' games, or not being
Right.
there.
Absolutely.
And I feel like our generation, there is definitely it's like a
better
common
balance.
factor, right?
Yeah.
Like I've seen you with your kids, and I've seen you out and about, and and I'm the same way that we're out there.
Right.
We want to be a part of that experience. We don't want to lose out on that experience.
I'd love to hear your perspective as we kind of round out, on this journey so far. And of course, we're going to do an update in a few years and see how things have continued to transpire. But, with family being on the forefront, one, you integrated your business and family, which is a lot of people can't say they've done that successfully. And it seems to be continuing to thrive. As you shift your focus to your kids, right? Tell me about kind of where you see that playing out. We've seen, tale is old as time, in the sense that, a parent or parents build this big business. You kind of assume that the kids will carry on the journey, but oftentimes they have their own passions and things like
Right.
that. And how do you balance that out? And I know your kids are young, just like mine.
Yep.
It's too early to, kind of
Right.
paint those pictures. But, from your perspective, do you see that as part of kind of an end goal for you? Or it's like, hey, I'm just going to create this amazing lifestyle for my kids, right? And, what they can go where they want to go. But where do you see some of that?
So thinking out loud, and it might not be a very popular answer, is that every kid they have their own journey.
Of course.
Right? That saying, like, your kids are not your kids. They're just, they're just life, and that's finding its way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then from what I've seen from my family as well, my dad put in a lot of time into his business, and while growing up, he devoted majority of his life towards his work and his whatever. And then he probably had it in mind that he's building it for his family.
Right.
But now we're in a different country. We're starting a totally different business.
Right.
And we have nothing. We have no association with what he's doing. And I feel like that might be the story with our kids as well, that they'll find their own journey and they'll find their own calling. And what we're doing is more for ourselves than it is
That's right.
for our kids, because they'll find their own way. And then you don't know what the next generation or what the next 20 years or 30 years might bring.
That's true. Yeah.
Right. But then what I feel that you can do is, what's under your control is just spending as much time as you can with them.
Yeah.
And instilling the qualities that you have in your kids.
Right.
And teaching them the value of things, to where they're not taking things for granted. And again, it's our first time doing this as well, so we're trying to steer. We're not experts either.
Of all the
We're not
playbooks that
perfect.
don't exist, it's how to raise children.
Right.
Nobody knows. We're all just figuring it out
Yes.
as we go. That's for sure.
Yep.
No, this has been great, Alym. Thank you again for the time. Your journey's incredible. Again, I can't wait to continue to hear and watch the both sides of the business flourish as they have so far. I'll have all your contact information in the show notes for everybody to follow up as they see fit. But thank you. This has been fantastic. Can't wait to check back in a couple of years and see how things are going.
Thanks, Apurva. Thanks for having me, and it was a pleasure. Really enjoyed talking to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.